one night only. Kicking off the Schmoedown 2019 season with a bang. At 8:30 p.m. is Alex Marzona.
Didn't take much to entice me. You might not, but I think I see so much in you. So much left to. Don't be shy. I promise I am not as crazy as I seem.
At 9 p.m., The River of Paradise, a tribute to Meatloaf and Billy Joel.
Treasure till you spend a lot of money.
Oh, preacher child.
And closing the night off at 11 p.m., the Urban Gladiator, Jay Washington.
And it's only two things you can do about it. Nothing and deal with it. Damn it. See you soon.
The Schmoedown New York City Fan Meetup, live at Sidewalk Cafe in New York City, January the 24th. Be there. $5 suggested donation for each act with a 2 food and drink minimum.
With that being said, let's get ready to Schmoedown!
3, 2. Oh, shit. Chris, are you ready? Oh, shit. Yeah, you're going to have some editing, but, you know, it's going to be hopefully not too much.
Just great.
Oh, I think we just recorded our cold intro.
Pluto.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's time for the Schmoedown Rundown. Introducing first, Frankie Stan Janisch, and the host of the Schmoedown Rundown, Brad Gilmore.
What's up, movie trivia Schmoedown fans? Welcome to the Schmoedown Rundown, the official after show for the movie trivia Schmoedown. My name is Brad Gilmore. I just celebrated a birthday, and I'm still handsome as ever, and joined by my friend in Chicago, Illinois, my man Frank Janisch. Frankie Frank, how's it doing, my brother?
It's going good. Happy 14th birthday. What'd you get?
I am officially twice as old as Linus. Officially.
Wow.
Twice as old as Linus. Yes. What did I get? Well, I got this fake baby beard. I got socks. And I got some stickers. Scratch and sniff version. You know what I'm talking about?
Scratch and sniff. Wow.
Yeah, man. Yeah, man. I love how the grape one smells. My man, though, from PA, his name is Chris Clarke 8788. Those numbers sneakily, I think, mean something. But Chris, how you doing, man?
I'm doing phenomenal. Pennsylvania is pretty damn cold, and happy birthday, Brad. This week of matches was, quote-unquote, fantastic. Our guest today, Marc Andreyko, is a gem, a man with a great big heart, and this week was rocking. So let's rock this sucker, Brad. Let's rock it to the end of time.
Well, way to blow up the lead there, Chris Clarke. We have a special guest on the show this week. He goes by the name The Android, Marc Andreyko. We're going to have him on. He's going to talk about both matches that we saw this week. Him versus his opponent, Dan Murrell, and Ethan Erwin versus Clarke Wolfe, the classy one. Wow, Frank, what a week of action. But before we jump into it, before I get into it, I got to take some blame for something, because I had to hit a red-eye flight right after we did our recording last week for the show. And, I had my mind on Vegas. You know what I'm saying? Vegas, baby. I wanted to hit the craps tables. I wanted to go play the Deal or No Deal game that's at the Bellagio. Y'all know which one I'm talking about if you're a gambler out there in Vegas. At the Bellagio, Deal or No Deal. It's the greatest game of all time. I was thinking about that too much. I forgot a great cutscene that we missed from last week. We forgot to cover it, Frank.
We did.
And I want to put part of the blame on you, but you got a haircut, you're looking fresh. I don't want to do too much blame on you, but Tom Dagnino and Paulie G had a little interaction, and I kind of wanted to get your feedback on that.
Well, also, I want to say that cutscene kind of sneaks in there at the very end because after
it's like a post-credit scene.
Because there's like a gap, there's like a segment of like black screen for like 4 seconds, and so if you would have just X'd out of the video, you would never know it was there. But the funny thing is, I did know it was there. It was actually written in my notes, and for whatever reason, we missed it. We missed it. But you know, the segment between Paulie G and Dagnino.
So you dropped the ball, not me. Okay, I like it.
We all dropped the ball. Okay.
Okay, just tell me
we
what
win
happened.
together, we lose together, Brad. Okay.
Hey, tell me what happened.
Well, they talked to each other, and then that was it.
Okay.
No, I just again, it's more Paulie G going around, kind of sticking his nose in people's faces about impending doom, if you will, or just him kind of again just going around, kind of making his presence known to everybody else in the Schmoedown, and it's kind of, I guess, foreshadowing some sort of reveal, if you will. Like of his master plan or whatever it is.
Right. Now, when we talk about, all the cutscenes from last week, not only did we spend extensive time on Paulie G, and I saw some interesting fan theories in the comments. Shout out to you, all the great people who comment positive things. I also saw something about, we were talking about Jay Washington and Ethan Erwin and their dynamic. Somebody had a comment that was really puzzling about you and I don't trying to equate it in an analogous situation to Jay and Ethan. Did you see this comment?
I did, but I don't remember it. I know what you're.
I saw it.
Okay.
I read it about 8 times, and I have no earthly idea what they're.
You can't read good.
I can read good, I can read real good. Real good. You know what I'm saying? But I have no idea what they're talking about. So someone fill me in on that. Commenter, and let me know what you were talking about. I don't remember. That's why I have you for. I
didn't know you were going to bring up this comment. You didn't tell me this.
Frank, we have to have a talk, man. We're coming here at the end of the season.
We're going to have a real serious
talk. We have to have a talk.
Yeah.
Because you are really just, you're letting me down in many ways. When I call for a stat, you say, give me a second. When I try to talk to a comment, and here's the thing, you replied to the comment. When I bring up a comment, you need to know what I'm talking about, Frank. I can't have you dropping the ball left and right in 2019. 25-year-old Brad, or 13-year-old Brad Gilmore might have gone for that. 14-year-old Brad Gilmore, I don't play that game, Frank. I don't need any bitch-assness in this show, or on this show, or around this show. You heard me. You heard me, Frank. Don't act like you haven't just because you got a fresh haircut. Don't act like you don't know. You know.
I seriously,
Frank.
I cannot find this damn comment that you're talking about. I know what you're talking about, but I can't find it.
But it's too much. The moment has passed. Okay. Now, the other thing that we didn't talk about was Roxy Stryer was doing the post-match interview for Murrell and Erwin. What did you think about that?
I was surprised to see Roxy do the post-match interview because it's usually Jen. But then, it was brought up that this match was taped fairly early on in the morning, and it makes sense because maybe Jen has other what's the word? Commitments,
things to do.
Yeah, things to do.
Okay.
Right. That early in the morning. I don't know exactly when, like 9 or 10, whatever it was. But to see Roxy step in there, I immediately, after I was done with the match, I immediately texted Christian. I was like, Roxy was amazing, and
Roxy's gold, man. Roxy's gold.
I
love Roxy.
I need to see more of Roxy do the post-match interview. I thought, and I was also thinking to myself, is it because it's a new voice, something new, and that's what was catching my ear? But the more I think about it, it's just she brings such a different approach to it that I really enjoyed, and I think a lot of other people enjoyed. So I definitely need to see more Roxy do post-match interviews next season. Obviously, the season's coming to a close, so coming up next season, I would love to see her do a lot more.
Can I tell you that, sometimes you just know when somebody is aware 100% of who they are, their personality, how they come across, and are confident in what they're doing and their opinions. Roxy Stryer, man, she's gold. I love her on that Collider Live show. Absolutely. I loved her doing the post-match interviews here. She is so talented, man. Big fan. Big fan.
And it makes sense.
That's the real girl there.
It makes sense when you know her career, because she does a lot of like press junkets and red carpet things. So she's always kind of interviewing in that kind of setting in a sense. So when I thought about it, I was like, this actually makes a lot of sense that she would be really good at this. And yeah, I loved it.
You know, Booker told me this story back. He started in this company called Global Wrestling Federation, right? And he's sitting there, he and his brother are there. They're talking to some old veteran who was like named Tiger or something like that. I can't remember the guy's name. But he's like a guy who's been around forever. Booker and his brother were new guys. And they're sitting there, and Ric Flair got to the building. He was working the show that night. Ric Flair walks in. You know, he's got the tailored suit. He's got the shades, the Rolex watch, the diamond ring, the alligator shoes. You know, and he walks by him. And then this Tiger guy turns to Booker and his brother Steve. He goes, "You see that? That's Ric Flair. That's the real boy there." That's what he said. That's the real boy there. And that's what I think about Roxy. That's the real girl there. She's the real deal.
Yeah,
I'm a big fan of Roxy Stryer.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
She tells it like it is. I love it.
Hey, yeah, 100%. On TriviaSD.com, also, our friend PJ Campbell, not Patrick Clarke, PJ Campbell, interviewed Alex Damon, and that's exclusively on TriviaSD.com. A lot of cool stuff. Janine the Machine's been killing it on TriviaSD.com. Yeah. Frank Janisch has been writing words that sometimes make sense, sometimes don't. But TriviaSD.com is killing it, man.
Yeah, I also have another article that'll be coming up in the next day or two. I interviewed Ethan Erwin for the site, and I kind of did like a profile breakdown of his play this year. It was a lot of fun to put that together. I hope you guys enjoy reading that. I tried to make it as informative and entertaining as I could, so hopefully you guys get something out of it. It comes up in a day or two, I think, after we're airing. So I know Bibiani wanted to put it up right away after the Friday match.
Oh, okay. Well, hey, we're going to see it. I'm going to read it, Frank. I'll read it.
Okay.
I promise you, I'm going to try to read it.
You're going to try to read? Is that what you're saying?
No, I'm going to
you can't read good?
make an attempt to read. Frank, we got to have a real talk after this episode.
I'm sorry. I really shouldn't bat around 14-year-olds. I'm sorry.
You know, here's the thing.
Yeah.
What if I couldn't read good? What if I couldn't read good? And now you're going to make fun of somebody who might have some learning disorder, might be dyslexic, you know, might have
The only reason I can make this joke is because I know you can read.
Okay, whatever, Frank. You don't know anything. You don't know nothing about hip hop.
You know, right?
I'm not saying I invented hip hop.
Hip hop?
But I was there.
Hip hop and
Now let's talk about, because we're going to get into Marc Andreyko. We've already taped this interview. It's a very insightful interview. We really enjoy Marc Andreyko on the show. Now, the one thing, we talk about both matches with him, but we didn't talk about the cutscenes. So I want to talk about the cutscenes for these matches, and then we're going to jump into our interview with Marc and the Android Andreyko. Now, in this opening cutscene for the Tuesday match, there was an opening scene of my guy, Mr. Yips himself, Lon Harris. Now, Lonnie Lon, man, was sitting there giving some sort of a lecture, some sort of thesis, some sort of dissertation, if you will. And we're trying to figure out, who is he teaching? What class is he teaching? Remember last year, he was all over Cody. He was all over, Cobster,
right.
Everybody. He was trying to lecture. And then I'm like, so I wonder who it is this year. Is it our man Alex Marzona out there? Is it PJ? Who's he trying to pick on this year leading into Spectacular? Excuse me. And it was one half of one of the GOAT teams in the movie Trivia Schmoedown. It was one half of the Wild Berries. Elliot Dewberry, the namesake of the Wild Berries, if we're going to be honest. There would be no Berry without Dewberry. And Dewberry goes, this isn't what the Schmoedown's about. The movies you were talking about they don't even have colors. Schmoedown's about having fun and getting drunk. That's essentially what he said.
I love Elliot Dewberry. That guy is amazing. If you remember, in the last live event, I talked to him in the green room. I was actually just going back through some of our episodes this year, past episodes, and when we did that preview special from the live event where I talked to like 7 or 8 competitors, he was one of them, and he went on this weird tangent of him running for office. But I mean, he's great. He's very entertaining. He just has a way presenting himself and the words that come out of his mouth. I need more Elliot Dewberry in the Schmoedown any which way that is possible.
Now, our closing cutscene of this match this week, the Tuesday match, was Thad Williams, in case you didn't know, and William the Beast, need I finish the name? They were together, and Bibiani was setting up his office for Entrance Consulting.
Yeah.
Talk to me, Frank.
This scene and the previous one is a change of pace from what we got right between, it was kind of following the storyline, Paulie G, Kalinowski, that whole thing. So it was a nice change of pace here. It was just kind of these really kind of inconsequential scenes that are happening, and Bibiani, trying to get this Entrance Consulting firm off the ground, apparently. And I saw someone note in a comment that they thought it was a great setup for him because if you notice, he didn't have any chairs. He just stands all the time now. So I like, that was a pretty clever comment. But again, this kind of goes into, Bibiani after he lost. It's like, I'm going to go into consulting for entrances because there's not a lot of great entrances that are happening now. So maybe this is something that actually trickles into next season where we kind of see more of these scenes with Bibiani having these, like, I just imagine him talking about these elaborate entrances and people are just like, we can't do that. We can't rappel from the rafters. We can't, skydive in. I would love to hear just some of these crazy ideas that he might have for scenes in the future. So it was pretty fun.
Hey, Bibbs is the all-time entrance GOAT. I think that's almost undisputable.
I think Brienne gives.
Undisputable?
Indisputable.
It's indisputable,
right? But it is undisputed. But it is in dispute because Brienne Chandler is on the opposite side. I
got to give it to Bibbs, man. Shout out to my girl Brienne. Brienne's been holding it down, but I don't know. I got to give it to my man Bibbs.
Well, she has taken a step back, but when she's in her prime, she was killing it.
Prime, yes. I got to rock with Brienne Chandler when we go back to, some of the great entrances of all time. But for the most part, I think Beast has been holding it down for me.
Sure.
Real quick, speaking of Brienne Chandler, we know she runs the Patreon. And as always, we have a giveaway recipient to be announced, Frank Janisch. So let me take a break in the action before we go any further. The giveaway recipient for October that we're announcing right now is Wade Carter. Wade got the Star Wars Spectacular 3 poster, as well as a thank you video from Ben Bateman and Rachel Cushing.
That's a hell of a giveaway. That's a pretty good haul.
That's a pretty good haul, Frank Janisch. That's a really good one. That's a really, really good one. So shout out to her. Or shout out to him, sorry, Wade Carter. Or her. I don't know Wade personally.
It's true.
It could go either way. I don't know. I'm not here to pick. I'm not here to guess. But anyway, shout out to the giveaway recipient, Wade Carter. Shout out to you. Now, let's move on. Since we're talking about Brienne Chandler, I want to bring up this. We had an opening cutscene from Brienne. Actually, first we saw Jen Sturger kind of sitting in the kitchen trying to get her coffee going. I don't know if that's a Keurig. I don't know if it's Nespresso. I don't know what kind of function she's trying to get at. But we saw Brienne kind of approach her and say, hey, Jen, I know this is, kind of a big deal here today. It's a big match. I know you're going to do the interviews for them. But, what do you say about kind of not doing them? We kind of want this union to go strong. We want some certain things to happen. What would you say? And Jen's like, I don't know. Am I going to be fired? I don't want to be. No. Hey, you're not going to be fired. Just don't show up because I want Thad to be put on the hot seat here. Brienne, once again, being very conniving.
Yeah, in a sense here. But I did like that Jen's mind automatically went to like, hey, I got to do my job. Like, that's a true professional right there.
I got to make the towns, brother. I got to make the towns. You know, I feel her. I understand. And she went right back to it. And then when she eventually agreed with Brienne, she said, "Okay, I'll go. Take the day off. Appreciate you, Brienne." She tries to get that damn Keurig to work. Can't do it. And then she says, "I don't even drink coffee anyway. I don't even know what I'm doing here."
You can put hot chocolate in those machines. Just saying.
You can put tea in the machine as well.
You can do that as well.
You can. There's a lot of things that you can do. Technology is a wonderful, wonderful thing, except Skype. I hate Skype. Now, Brienne continues to try to, poke the bear, if you will, of Thad Williams, or ruffle his feathers would probably be more an apropos description of the situation. And doing that she is. So we'll see how that plays out. Also, Mike Kalinowski, in our closing cutscene from the finals match, Mike Kalinowski gets a pep talk from the pit boss. What was going on here, Frank?
Yeah, this is what people love about Ken so much. He's great on the mic. He gives like these monologues, and it kind of, it either riles you up and makes you laugh. And here he was, Kalinowski seemed, he's been beaten recently in everything that he's kind of put together through the season, and now it's kind of crumbling around him, so he's feeling a little down. But here comes Knapsack to kind of lift his spirits, to saying that he can go ahead and get this Inner Geekdom title, that, he brought a lot of good to the league, that, again, everybody out here doesn't really see what he's done, and that they don't respect what he's done for the league. Now, that's their mentality, right? So Ken's there being a good, loyal soldier, a good teammate, with Kalinowski saying, look, we got to keep going on with the fight here, and you're going to win this thing. So, again, it's more of Ken doing more of what we love to see him do, and that's, give these great speeches, if you will.
No, yeah. And Ken, when we talk about
he's a wordsmith, is what he is.
He's a wordsmith, man. He's great on the stick, brother. He's great on the stick. He's a mic technician, is that man, Ken Knapsack. But hey, Frank, we talked about the cutscenes. We talked about what happens before. We talked about what happens after. We've even done a Patreon giveaway recipient. But let's get our guy, the android, on the line so we can break down the reason y'all are all watching this show. Let's talk about the matches. Right now, we're going to be joined by Marc, the android, Andreyko. Welcome back to the Schmoedown Rundown. We have a special guest on the line from the Fife Club. He is the android, Marc Andreyko. Marc, how you doing, man?
Good. How are you guys?
We are well. We're excited to have the android on. You hold the award for the moment of the year for last year at the movie Trivia Schmoedown for the last season. I got to get your instant reaction first off of that. Just walk me through that moment. I know it was a while ago. I know a lot of stuff has transpired since then, but walk me through the moment.
Is that when I cleared the table?
That's when you cleared the table.
I honestly thought I was the one that was out, because I looked at we have a monitor in front of us that has the scores, and it didn't have our names. It had player 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, and I saw that 4 scores were the same and my score was different, so I assumed mine was the losing one. And then it takes me a second. You can see in the video, it takes me a second to process. Oh, wait a minute. I beat these people? Cool.
It was a moment that we'll always remember. I called it as soon as I saw it. It was like Babe Ruth calling his shot at the center field fence. I said, this is the moment of the year. We all knew it. The second thing that I want to talk to you about before we get into it, you've had an incredible season this year with joining the Fife Club. We saw the android's true colors this year. You're more of a good guy. You're a lover. You're not the bad guy that we all maybe thought you could have been for the prior season. But the one thing that you did this year, Marc, I come from a business called professional wrestling, right? This is what I work in. This is the daily job. And I can tell everybody in the world of professional wrestling has seen 2 movies. We've all seen at least 2 movies. We've seen Mickey Rourke's The Wrestler, and that's what we do when we need to all cry and feel really depressed about our career path. And the other one that we watch all the time is Ready to Rumble.
Oh, I will never watch that fucking movie. And I'm still not convinced that it wasn't Sean William Scott pretending to be Scott Conn. I think everybody's wrong. I would rather There are a couple movies I will never watch because of the Schmoedown. That's one. The Sandlot is another. Frank is another one. Movies that there are constantly questions asked about, and I just don't care.
Yeah, there was a run of Frank questions that came up for like a few weeks in a row, but I think since then it might have been retired. So you might be in luck there.
We just got to get Skalicki to see more movies.
True.
Well, I mean, here's the thing. I mean, the Ready to Rumble. I mean, you're not missing much. I will say, even though David Arquette, friend of mine, friend of the show, you're not missing much. But if you're in the,
I love David. I met him recently. He's a delightful guy, and I think a fairly underrated actor. He's had some forays into drama. One of my favorite performances he did was a movie called Johns with him and Lucas Haas as street hustlers on Santa Monica Boulevard in Los Angeles, and it's a really great small drama. So I really like him. I have no qualms with him. I'll just never see that movie.
Well, let's move on from that because it was a joke in your match. Christian had to lead you astray there in your match from this week. You faced dangerous Dan Murrell. Many people consider him the GOAT, but this year we saw some chinks in his armor. What did you think when you found out you're going to go through this kind of second chance encounter with Dan Murrell?
By the end of the season, I was so punch drunk and exhausted because we filmed all of my matches in the course of like 3 weeks, I think. So people were like, "Oh, we're sorry you're not going to make it. You challenged for the belt. We're sorry you lost." I'm like, "I'm actually good with that. I'm good." I think I'm burnt out. I think I had a really great season.
Yeah.
Looking back, I think I might not have won a belt yet, but I think I'm a fairly consistent player. So I'm not ashamed or have any regrets or anything, because there's two ways you lose. Either you lose or you just didn't know the answers. And if it's a question where you didn't know the answer, if you'd be sitting there for hours, you can't be mad about a loss. So.
And one thing I noticed, though, about you, Mark, is I can tell that you definitely have a very laid-back persona, and you can kind of be very light when you're out there competing, but you take the game seriously, right?
Oh yeah, nobody wants to lose. I like to win. Everybody likes to win.
Sure,
but it's also keeping in context. It is a game. I don't like losing, but it's not really going to ruin my life if I don't win. I always joke that we were playing for big money. If we're playing for $10,000, then I'd be really mad about things like Ready to Rumble. But ultimately, it's game night with friends, but just on the internet.
Yeah, well, if you're playing for $10,000, then you actually might have to watch Ready to Rumble. Frank Janisch, what do you got?
Well, Mark, early on in your career, you started off great with Bibiani. You're kind of inconsistent. You're kind of up and down. But this year, you talked about it. You were pretty consistent this year. Is there anything that you did differently that you think might have helped you out, or is it just kind of the way the game went for you this year?
Well, I mean, it's learning to play the game. It's learning to have strategy. There's knowing things is not enough. You can actually win the game by not knowing things if you play correctly. And like when I challenged the graphic novel Mask question,
sure.
I still think I'm absolutely right. And that didn't change the point value, but it allowed me to derail the energy of that team and kind of throw them off because they don't play as often. So I played so many matches so quickly that I got to see games that were well played and learn from that. And the first season I played, the Finstock thing doesn't count. One, because
sure.
I was playing as Finstock, and two, what no one really knows is I had the flu. I had 102-degree fever when I was playing.
Oh wow.
When you attend a Schmoedown taping, there's a lot of energy in the room, and especially when you get in front of the bright lights, it's kind of hot. It's a warm setting, and then you have that Finstock mask on and 102-degree fever. I don't even know how you made it out of there alive.
I honestly don't even remember the match very well. I mean, and this isn't sour grapes or an excuse for losing. Who knows if it would, they could have ended the same way if I was feeling well. But it was like I was new to the Schmoedown, and I didn't want to disappoint anybody and cancel at the last minute. So I'm like, I can do this. And luckily, Christian had said beforehand, because of the whole shtick with the Finstock thing, it wasn't going to count in my record one way or the other. So that made it a little more palatable for me to like risk playing while I was hallucinating and seeing dead relatives floating around.
But you're going into this match against Dan Murrell. We've talked about it. A lot of people say he's one of the greatest of all time. Definitely, maybe have had a little bit, a rusty start to his initial season here when he came back, but definitely found his footing. Going up against Dan, did you employ any kind of strategy?
No, I've known Dan for such a long time now that it was just, I was going into it thinking, if I win, great. If I lose, great. I'm losing to a good player. I tend to not really overthink the stuff. I mean, I try to, I'll like when I play up against Ethan and stuff, I would study, do some practicing with my faction members, but I don't lose sleep over preparation for this.
Sure.
Because you get to a point where there's stuff you know and there's stuff you don't know, and the stuff that I don't know, I'm not going to know. So it's just, that's why, the wheel in those 2, 3, and 5 point questions at the end, there's so much fate to it. I mean, there's just so much that you have no control over. So you kind of, I think if you prepare too much, you're setting yourself up to get thrown if there's a variable you didn't prepare for. There's a thing about being over prepared. Now, if I was playing a specific match that was like all movie release dates, which I would never play anyway, or something like that, then there's things when you can prepare for. But I tend to try and keep it fast and loose, because when I go in relaxed, I'm a better player.
Yeah, it certainly showed this year. You can't argue with the results too much. I mean, you made it all the way to the semifinals of the tournament, and you had a shot against Bibiani earlier in the year for a shot at the belt. So no one can argue that your methods seem to have worked to a large extent this year, and you had a really great run.
Yeah, I mean, it's fun. The fans have been really gracious, and I've made a lot of really great friends down there. So, I always say if you lose, if it's not a blowout, there's nothing to be ashamed about, because ultimately the variables are the fates are the ones that decide what's going to happen.
Absolutely. I agree with you wholeheartedly. Watching this game week to week, studying it, breaking it down here on the show, to me, I equate it a lot to golf. Golf, you can get your skill level up to a certain point, but there are always going to be factors there's no way you can account for, like weather, how the grass was cut, how hard's the wind blowing. There's just certain things that you're just going to have to get lucky at. And I think, you're absolutely right. You know the things and there's going to get to a point to where you're just not going to know certain things, and the fate of that wheel and the questions and categories you pick in round 3 are really going to decide a lot. So let's talk about it, though. Let's talk about your match against Dangerous Dan Murrell. Round number 1, I don't know, Frank, and you're more the statistician, but 9-5, I guess it's probably safe to say, not how you wanted the game to begin, Mark.
Yeah, no, but once again, you gotta it's like swimming and you get caught in the undertow. The more you fight it, the worse it takes you. And there's always another question, and there's always another round, and there's always, things can change. To paraphrase, I think maybe it was Yogi Berra that said this: "It ain't over till it's over," and that's all you can really do. You kind of got to be able to improv and vamp out there, because once again, if you get too far, the moment you get in your head is the moment you're done. So.
And Frank, as far as the stats go for round number 1, I mean, Dan gets all 8 correct plus a bonus. Kind of been on a tear here. Marc Andreyko, of course, we said got 5. Is that about his league average?
Yeah, he's been about 5 or 6, so it was nothing below par for Andreyko, but it was kind of really something that Murrell kind of exceeded his normal play, and it just happened to fall on this day.
Absolutely. Now, really though, where a lot of the game is decided is in round 2, and round 2 was a very drama-filled game or round here. Marc Andreyko, you go up first and spin new release dates, and then quickly spin away from it. I've kind of been a big proponent of spinning away from new release dates because I think you just never know what you're going to get. Why are you spinning away from new release dates or new releases? I'm sorry, new releases.
Because the past year has been one of the weakest years in my lifetime as far as movies go, and I haven't seen a lot of stuff because there's been very little inspiring or interesting or exciting stuff theatrically. At this point, at the end of the year, I'm having a struggle making a 10 best list. Yeah. Usually every year, even on thinner years, there's 1 or 2 movies that I know I'll revisit often. And this year there's 2 that I feel that I would like to own and revisit. But other than that, most of the stuff is just, there's just so much stuff, and there's so much stuff I'm just not interested in.
So you spin away from new releases. You end up on Disney, Mark. You went 2 of 4 for 4 points in this round. Did it go better than you thought, or was this about as you expected for a Disney category?
Well, Disney, the categories like Disney, crime, thriller are so big because you've got almost 100 years worth of films that could be in there. I think the man cub thing, they should have said more specific.
Okay.
It's easy to armchair quarterback stuff. So.
Right, and then when we get into Dan's turn, he ends up on opponents. Now, what was the thinking behind giving him Tim Burton? Because it seemed to sort of work in your favor. He got 3 of the 4 questions right for 4 points, just like you in your turn for 4 points. What was your thinking in Tim Burton? Is this something that you were strong in, and you thought if you got a chance to steal, it might go your way? What was the strategy behind giving him Tim Burton?
Well, the last time I had Tim Burton, I think I got all 4. I think I got 8 points or 7 out of 8. And looking at the wheel, Dan's knowledge base is so wide. I figured that Tim Burton has been asked a number of times, and so maybe the questions would be a little bit more difficult, because when a category is landed upon all the time, the questions get deeper and get deeper each time. So it was a strategy point that kind of worked, sort of worked, 50% worked.
Right. Now, is that some sort of benefit to being at the matches as much as you can? Because now you see what categories are being taken. Because, as we know, when a match is taped, it doesn't come out usually for a week or 2. So it's not, if you're trying to catch up, you're not really seeing what's been pulled in real time from when you guys are actually playing and taping. Is that something where you can figure out, like, this category has actually been pulled a lot lately? If I were to give an opponent this category, that's a benefit of coming to the matches as much as you can in the studio?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. It's fun to watch the matches when you're not playing, specifically because then you can, we're all in the audience sitting there typing in our phones and our notes app what the answers are and seeing how well we do. But it's just a matter of playing, of being aware of the different facets of the game and trying to play the best game you can, as well as answer the questions correctly.
All right, so we're going to get out of round 2 and into round 3. You're still down by 6 points, a pretty large deficit. You basically knew that you're going to have to run the table here in the third round, all 3 questions. You've done it before. What was your confidence level that you could run the table and kind of make a game of it and kind of force Murrell to answer some questions here in the end?
Well, that round 3 with those questions, that is so completely, you don't know what you're going to get. And sometimes you get things and sometimes you get things you don't. And when I got to my 5-point question about the Studio Ghibli, I knew it was one of 2 movies. Mm-hmm. And Princess Mononoke, when it came out, was so well viewed that one I thought was I just thought it was the right answer.
just one of those days, and unfortunately, you come up short, and your season was ended there. You seemed pretty relieved, as you were talking about earlier. You know, it was a long season for you, or especially in the short time span of you filming your matches. Are you, looking forward to next season? Because Christian's been talking about or been teasing some of these changes. I don't know if you're aware of any of them, and obviously we can't disclose any of them yet until Spectacular next week. But from what you might have heard, I don't know if you have, is there anything are there things there that make you excited to compete next year?
Yeah, I mean, I was just over at the office today talking to Christian. So yeah, we talked about a lot of stuff. So yeah, I'm very excited to see how all the new stuff is going to land. I think all of it is for the best. So we'll see.
But now we got to talk about Clarke Wolfe versus Ethan Erwin. The finals. This was it. This is the finals of the Ultimate Schmoedown Singles Tournament. Winner will face John Roca at the Spectacular for the championship. This was a hell of a match, if I do say so myself. Marc Andreyko, when you saw this was going to be the final, Ethan Erwin, who I call the human Alexa, versus Clarke Wolfe, what did you think? I mean, obviously, Clarke Wolfe, that's your teammate. That's part of the 5 Club. Did you think this was just going to be an all-out 12-round boxing match?
Yeah, I mean, they're both great players. Ethan is a great player, but as the only person who's ever beaten him, that's one of the things about watching the game and knowing what people's weaknesses and strategies were. Going back to my thing with Ethan, I was completely shocked he didn't know the names of the 3 kids from Peter Pan. But then again, that's the greatness of the diversity of the game. Depending on what generation you are, questions that are super easy for some people are super hard for others. Like when we did that live event and the Team Action got the Kelly McGillis question from The Accused. I'm like, there's only 2 actors in that movie for the most part. How do you not know that? But then I realized, that movie's 35 years old. So, it's everybody has different things that work for them and not. And it's always usually the questions that that no one else knows are not in your match. Like when Clarke got one, I think it was about what Star Trek actor was in this movie, and I knew it was Anton Yelchin, and there were a couple other ones. But watching them both play, they're both such different types of players as well, which is fascinating. It's always fun to watch when different types are forced to play each other because that makes things interesting. Because
how are they different types? Like, what are their differences?
Well, Ethan is such a low-key, calm player, and Clarke is so competitive in the best sense of the word, and just very focused. The level of intensity she has, opposite Ethan's sort of whatever happens, is very interesting.
And this is how low-key Ethan is. He didn't even realize it was a 5-round match when he walked into the building that day.
Yeah.
That's pretty low-key. You don't get much low-key than that. But, for him to go kind of from a 3-round structure now into a 5-round match, not even being able to prepare for it, you had to be, as a part of the 5 Club, Marc Andreyko, you had to be pretty confident in your girl, Clarke Wolfe, there to be able to pull this one out.
Well, I mean, you hope for the best, but that's the thing about this singles tournament. It was the Clash of the Titans for every single match. I mean, there was no, when your first match is against Drew McQueenie, it ain't going to be easy,
right?
And the 8 people that were playing, were all good players, and it could have gone any way. That's what was interesting about it is, and I think it was what was interesting what I've heard from the fans, that people were conflicted on who they wanted to win, because watching all of us is pretty entertaining. There's no losers. It's like I said when I lost to Clarke and when I lost to Dan. I might have not won those matches, but I certainly didn't lose anything. Those were fun to play. In fact, the last 3 matches I played, Drew, Clarke, and Dan, were some of the most fun I've played. Those are the kind of matches. Those are why I do the Schmoedown.
Right. I mean, we're all in it to have fun. So, and us as fans who sit here and, like I said, watch it week to week. You have your favorites, you have the people that you root for, but at the end of the day, it is a game, and we're meant to be entertained. And entertaining this match was Frank Janisch from round one all the way to the end. This was one of those type of matches that you definitely don't forget very quickly.
Yeah, they were both dead even at 6 at the end of this one. Trading. Clarke, right off the bat, did not get the Indiana Jones question correct, so she was down 1 right away. That was kind of surprising, but then she was able to... what was Indiana Jones's friend, or let's see here. The answer was Marcus.
But it was in the Indiana Jones films. What's the name of Indy's scholarly friend who once got lost in his own museum? Right. Yeah, the answer was Marcus. You got to be a fan. I think that one's, though, you got to be an Indiana Jones fan. You might remember Sala.
I wouldn't have known that. I would have. I know the actor, Denholm Elliott, but I wouldn't have remembered the character's name.
Yeah, so I don't discredit her too much on that one. I think that's, like I said, you might know Sala, you might know John Rhys Davies' character's name, because it's said a lot more than Marcus is. So I won't fault her too much for that. But then you had, right up her wheelhouse was question 2 in horror thriller, 2003 film directed by Danny Boyle. I mean, we knew that Clarke Wolfe was going to be. That's her getting in her bag when you bring up the horror thriller stuff. And then, like you said, Frank, tied 6-6 at the end of round 1. No clear advantage from either one. That's how you knew we were gonna have to buckle in for quite the long match. Mark, talk to me when you saw this match end the round end 6-6. Did you think that this is going to be a nail biter? It's going to come down to the last couple questions.
Yeah, I mean, because and that's what all of us as competitors want too. We want to, ultimately we all want to win, but if we lose, we want the match to be entertaining. Nobody likes a blowout. I mean, it's like the Super Bowl, probably over 60% of the Super Bowls are blowouts where it's like 805-3, and that's the first half of the game. So when you want the game to go as far as possible, and truthfully, I haven't had that many knockouts, but I like going. I want to know all 2, 3, and 5 questions for both sides. I think that's fun. I want to know. Every time we don't get that far, I'm always saying to Christian, I want to know what they were. He's like, I can't tell you. We're going to use them again some other time. But I like seeing. For me, the matches aren't about winning by a big point. It's like running a marathon. It's who has the best time. You both do the exact same route. Who has the best time? Who has, that to me is the fun part. I always feel like we're shafting the viewers when the matches end, like before the third round.
Sure.
Yeah. No, I definitely, I'm with you. Especially when you don't get to see the other side return in that round 3, and you want to see how they would have stacked up. I get that, but then again, when there is a knockout, or when someone's competing at the free for all and clears the entire table after one round, that's also what makes the game so. It makes it so dynamic. It's just not the same thing every time. You literally in the movie Trivia Schmoedown never know what's going to occur. And for Clarke Wolfe and Ethan Erwin to tie after round number 1, you knew that this 5-rounder was going to be one of those that we're just going to have to buckle in for and wait on. Round 2, Frank, ends 11-12. Clarke Wolfe down by just 1 point. Not a lot. What was your analysis, Frank, round 2?
Yeah, I thought it was a pretty well played round from both of them. Clarke ended up on animating. She got the first 2 right for 4 points, but then went down to multiple choice for the last 2, and she was fortunate enough. Well, not fortunate enough. I'm sorry. I'm reading the opposite side here. She got stolen on both for 1 point from Ethan, but Ethan, when we got to his category of Drew Barrymore, I couldn't really tell if he was well versed in Drew Barrymore or if he was just saying here we go, his kind of casual self. But his round somewhat mirrored Clarke's because he got the first 2 right, and then he went to multiple choice on the last 2, got those wrong. But Clarke was only able to pick up 1, so that's where the 1 point difference comes in place here. Still very, very close, and then a lot, and when it's close like this in a 5-round match, there's still so much game to be played. When you talk about the betting round, the speed round, those things can really blow it wide open for somebody. And the fact that it was just 1 point, I don't think you could have said one way or the other that Ethan had it in the bag, or Clarke was going to make a run, take it over at the end. That's what makes this match so exciting and compelling.
Mark, when you saw Drew Barrymore come up as Ethan Irwin's category, did you think that he was going to do as well as he did?
Yes, because because Drew Barrymore hasn't made movies very many in the past. Gosh, going on 10 years, it feels like. So Ethan's of a generation that has seen a lot of Drew Barrymore movies.
That's a great point.
Yeah. So, I mean, for me, I would have been happy to have Drew Barrymore as a category, because what was the last movie she made?
I don't know. Blended with Adam Sandler, probably. That's the last one I can remember. Yeah.
You kind of know if a category hasn't been asked that much, it's going to be more likely than not in every case, but more likely than not, the movies that come to mind, when you say name 5 movies by this act, the first batch of questions are probably going to be mostly about those 5 movies.
It's interesting you bring up Ethan's from a kind of a different generation, because he passed up on 90s. Were you surprised by that?
Yeah, I would too. The 90s, okay. First of all, the 90s were the height of Sundance, and there were lots of white guys going back to their small towns and finding love to emo music.
Sure.
There were 500 of those movies. There were 500 Tarantino knockoffs. The only Tarantino knockoff from the 90s that actually had him in it that I would love a question for is Destiny Turns on the Radio, because it was so bad it's burned into my DNA. But the 90s was Sundance movies and knockoffs, and so many movies with generic titles. All those sex thrillers that were like knockoffs of like Basic Instinct, where it was like Simple Passion or Bloody Fire, and they're all the same title. They're all the same movie. That's a very difficult, broad decade. The 80s had specific markers in it, whereas the 90s was just kind of this smear of, movies can make money at the Sundance Film Festival. Let's all make these same low-budget crime movies or navel-gazing white guy movies.
It's a really interesting point.
Yeah, obviously I'm a product of the 90s, so to me that would be the category I'd run to, because I grew up in that era. But that is a great point. The 80s are defined by certain tentpole films and then certain comedies that all kind of had the same cast in them, and then you had like I said, your Indiana Joneses or your early 80s had the Star Wars, your Back to the Futures. You're going to kind of cover that decade rather easily. I also, tell me if you agree with this, the early 2000s is kind of a difficult one too, Mark.
Oh, the early 2000s is pretty awful as well. Yeah. There's just so much stuff that even the stuff that was critically acclaimed and Oscar winning isn't all that memorable. It's always the case that the best movies don't ever win the awards and the best performances. It's just, once again, it's a matter of luck and zeitgeist and stuff. But yeah, the early 2000s are pretty rough as well.
Where do you sit on Chicago as an Academy Award winning film?
I think it's a great movie. I think I actually did that musical in college, and I thought I think most of the credit should go to Bill Condon's script, because the way he changed it, where it was she was actually in jail and the production numbers were her imagination, was a brilliant stroke of genius to make that movie work. What did it beat?
I do not remember. Was that the year that was Capote up? No, that was the next year. That was a couple years later. I don't remember, to be honest with you. But I'm a big fan of Chicago, and a lot of people tell me that wasn't best picture quality, and I'm like, you're out of your mind. You're out of your mind.
Oh, it's absolutely best picture quality. It might be a throwback in a nostalgic sort of throwback, having a big musical like that. But look at the movies that have won recently. Crash is the easy one to go after. Sure. There's so many movies, and historically it's always been that. I mean, All About Eve and Sunset Boulevard didn't win. Born Yesterday won. And I don't know anyone who talks about Born Yesterday. People People know the Disney Melanie Griffith remake more than they remember that original one.
Now, real quick before we move on, though, I have to ask. You said you were in Chicago. You were in the play. What character? Who's your character?
A character that's not in the movie, because in the play, when Roxy is on trial, there's a jury box with 12 seats, and there's one member. And I bounced from seat to seat and had costumes under each seat and changed costumes. It's a silent part because I can't sing. So me in a musical not singing is a good musical. But it's a really fun part to do because, I was an old Italian widow. I was a guy with a pith helmet and a safari outfit. I was a chef. I was a juggler. It was just ridiculous. But yeah, that part is not in the movie. And also in the play, the role that Christine Baranski played, Little Mary Sunshine, in the play is played by a man in drag. And there's a reveal at the end that it's a man in drag, because that was, once again, a vaudevillian trope, but that wouldn't make any sense in a film.
Well, there you go. I had no idea of that. I've never seen the Broadway production or anything. I might have to check that out while I'm in New York. Let's move on, Frank, to the next round, though. That round 3 ended 15-13.
Yeah.
Talk about this to me, Frank, the betting round. Lay the table for us.
Yeah, so the category for the round is horror, and you bet up to 3 points, 0 to 3 points. Ethan Erwin bet 3. Clarke Wolfe bet 2. And I was really disappointed she bet 2 for the horror category. I understand that sometimes, you're going to get a horror question, even though that's your category. You'll get some that'll trip you up. I just felt in a championship-like match, a 5-round match here to go play for the title, it's horror category. You got to bet the 3 points, even though really in the end it didn't matter that much. Well, yes,
I think it does matter. Yeah. No, I hear you.
So,
what did you think? What did you think, Mark, as far as strategy wise for Clarke there? Why only bet 2 in a category she's real strong in?
Because horror, once again, when a category is a genre or a decade, it is incredibly, incredibly broad, and you have an equal chance of getting something or getting a question like which paranormal activity had this in it, because horror in the recent history has been sequels to Blumhouse films, and they're all kind of the same thing. Now, that's not an insult, but I can't tell you what the difference between the killings in Saw 1 and Saw 5 or Paranormal Activity 1 or Paranormal. Because they're at least like a Friday movie or a Friday the 13th movie, or even a Halloween, one of the Halloween sequels. There's different stuff. There's stuff in them that you can latch onto that make you that differentiate them in your mind. And in a game like this, it's why the JTE rule is so helpful, because sometimes you just have to think and it's going so quick. It's easy to be an armchair contestant at home, but when you're up there, that 15 seconds goes super fast. And I see why she did what she did. I see why that made sense.
Okay. Yeah, I can see that too. I just think still in this setting, like I said, I can see the 2, but to me, not being a competitor, that going, like you said, Frank, going for 3 in a category that you're familiar with, especially when you're down slightly, albeit slightly, gaining any points on Ethan Erwin would be a good thing. But, still to be, 15-13 after round number 3, you're not in a horrible position. And if you can play this speed round right, you're going to be in a great position. And that's exactly what Clarke Wolfe did when it came to the speed round. She was all over this thing, Frank.
Yeah, I was pretty confident. Go ahead, Mark. Yeah.
We practiced, Rachel.
Talk to me. So how did y'all do it?
We borrowed the buzzers and we asked each other questions until our hands fell off, because those buzzers those buzzers aren't like no whammies. You punch that buzzer and it's not going to go off, and you're going to hear Fisher yelling at you because they paid a fortune for them. I don't know why we just don't use hotel desk bells, but that's just me. I mean, that to me is simpler. But technology is fascinating, I guess. So we practiced. If you notice, every time I've ever played the speed round, or I played the speed round this season, I put my head down. I don't look at anybody. I close my eyes and I have my hands on the buzzer because it's getting zen with the way you touch the buzzer.
That's so fascinating that you guys got to really figure out. That's just another layer to this game that I don't think anybody ever anticipated was how to work the buzzer. That's fascinating.
Well, I mean, it goes back to what I said about golf, knowing how to read the green, knowing, what way the wind is blowing, if it's blowing at you or blowing away from you, how that will carry the ball. It's the same thing here. It's just being able to adapt to all these different things about the game. And that is very interesting that y'all had to sit there and do that. And Clarke, Wolfe, obviously it paid off for the speed round questions was in The Wizard of Oz. What does the Tin Man want? Obviously he wants a heart. Will Smith, Kevin Kline, and Salma Hayek star together in what movie? Wild Wild West, by the way, guilty pleasure of mine. Robin Williams, Paul L. Smith, and Shelley Duvall star together in this comedy was Popeyes. Not a guilty pleasure of many people's. What did you think, though, Mark? Did you think these were...
Wait a minute. You're going to tell me you like what? You like Wild Wild West better than Robert Altman's Popeye?
I do. I do. I'm sorry. You're
wrong. You're completely wrong. I agree with what the late Roger Ebert said about Wild Wild West. Will Smith and Kevin Kline have so little chemistry that he thought they didn't film on the same day, that they spliced them into the scenes together. And I absolutely believe that. That movie is, if I had 6 months to live, I'd watch that movie every day.
Yeah, I know it's not good. It's something I know is not good for me. Like if I go to Whataburger or to Burger King or Taco Bell, I know it's not good for me, but I have to indulge every once in a while. 1990 Salma Hayek, that's an all-timer for me. She's a Hall of Famer. And then Will Smith, you know what I mean? I love the movie. I love the movie. I can't help it. I'm sorry.
You are quite possibly the only human being on the planet alive now who would publicly say they love that movie.
Hey, I'll take it. I'll take that mantle. I'll rock with it proudly. Wild Wild West. And you know what?
That's fine. My favorite Spider-Man movie is Amazing Spider-Man 2, and my favorite Superman movie is Man of Steel. So,
well, hey, I like Man of Steel a lot, but Spider-Man 2, amazing.
I can get with you on. I actually like Superman 3. Okay, we move on though. I thought that
you're fired. Stay away.
Look. I'm not saying I have a unique palette here. I don't have a very diverse portfolio. But my favorite movie of all time is Walk the Line. Will you get on me for that one?
It's fine. I would say you probably need to see more movies. You probably need to see more movies, but it's not a bad movie.
God, the Android is killing me. First, you dissed pro wrestling last week, and now you're killing me on here with my picks here. Okay, but Clarke, Wolfe. Oh, and then we continue. I'm sorry. Who directed 2017's The Mummy? I didn't like that one, Marc Andreyko. And then we get to question number 5. Who played Veronica Corningstone in Anchorman: The Legend of Ron Burgundy? Of course, Christina Applegate. Clarke, Wolfe, like we said, she comes out ahead there by 1 point, 17-16. Yeah. Had she bet, the 3 points in the last round, she would have been up 2. But hindsight is 2020. As we move into round number 5, we knew this was going to be down to the wire, and down to the wire it was. Is there, Mark, since you've competed in the 5-round structure, is it just really trying to keep it as close as possible, getting to the 5th round? Is that the strategy you're looking for, or are you looking for to swing for the fences and just knock these people out before you even have to get to that round?
Well, ideally you want a lead when you're going into the final round. I am, the championship matches. I do not like the betting round or the bell round, the buzzer round very much. I'm perfectly content to not see them very often because there are too many variables there. The answering the question wrong, losing a point is an issue. Wrong in both those rounds. So the potential traps in those outweigh any benefits from them.
I can understand that. What would you suggest any change to one of those rounds? Would you say was there anything that you have in mind that can maybe improve on that?
I don't know. You know, I think that, you know, I would kind of like the buzzer round to be like Jeopardy. If the first person answers it incorrectly, the next person can buzz in.
Gotcha.
If they know it, I think that would be cool. And I wish that maybe in a championship match you could steal in the 2, 3, and 5 pointers. But the trade-off would be if you try to steal and you don't get it right, you lose that amount of points.
So you would have the option to steal if you wanted. So you could accept the option to steal, or you could say, I don't want the option.
Yeah, you can say, you know, they're like if it's a question that no, you know, for example, even though, like, going back to my match with Ethan, even if you know it, if I knew it, you know, I knew the Wendy, Michael, and John question, I could have said I want to steal that, even though I had won at that point, just to be a dick and have 5 more points. There's that, you know, there's like that, you know, when the team winning at the Super Bowl is winning by 14 points.
Just run it up.
Final field. They just do the final field goal just to be dicks. But there's also, those can be deciding factors. And I think I would eliminate the betting round and just make that round the final round. You have the opportunity to steal, but if you get it wrong, you lose those points. I think that could change a ton of matches.
Yeah, that would be interesting. Maybe they are going to have another rules summit, and you could submit these suggestions.
I like the idea. I really do.
I do. I do find it intriguing.
Yeah. Okay. Well, we might hear from Christian about it. Who knows? Let's get into round number 5. Frank, give me the blow by blow here. Break it down for us, and then let's talk about it.
Well, with Ethan down by 1 point, he has to go first, and he gets 80s for his first question. Who played James Bond in The Living Daylights? Timothy Dalton. So it was a pretty standard 2-pointer, and then
the underappreciated Timothy Dalton. Continue.
And then it bounces back now to Clarke, and she gets sports. Which team is Jimmy Fallon a fan of in the film Fever Pitch? It's Red Sox again. Pretty standard for a 2-point question. And then we get into some interesting territory here because we start seeing a couple misses. Well, first from Ethan Erwin. It's in the Nicole Kidman category in The Golden Compass, who plays Lee Scoresby, a Texan aeronaut who accompanies Lyra on her adventures. Sam Elliott. I had no idea. I never saw the movie. This was quite a question. And because he missed, still down, he has to answer his final 5-point question. It's in the category of horror. And Clarke had some issue with this question, and I want to ask Mark after I read the question. In The Cabin in the Woods, what kind of creature does Bradley Whitford's character desperately want to see? And he answered a merman. Now, Mark, Clarke seemed to have some issue with this. It wasn't really explained too much in the post-match interview. Can you venture a guess as to why someone might have a problem with this as a 5-pointer?
Because that's the only thing anyone remembers from that movie. That's not a 5-point question. It just isn't. I think the Jimmy Fallon Red Sox question is a tougher 5-point question because the only thing I remember about Cabin in the Woods is that. I think if you ask 100 people about the movie, the majority of the questions are going to be talking, or answers are going to be talking about that. I just don't think it's a very difficult 5-point question. I don't think it is. And, you know, we've been rounding around with that, with those guys, you know, and, you know, that's open to interpretation. That's open to argument. But I really, that's a 3-point question at best.
Yeah, it seemed pretty simple for Ethan Erwin when you watch him answer that question. It doesn't seem like he had to pause too much there. But yeah, I think you're probably right about the point about that this is probably the only thing people remember from this movie.
We're going to do is say, that's a 5-point question, and what were the names of Iron Man's arms in Iron Man was a 5-point question.
Sure.
In Intergeekdom.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's who was our first president, and who was the 13th president's Secretary of Agriculture?
Yeah, no, I definitely understand the comparison. I have never even seen Cabin in the Woods, and I knew the answer to this question. And I don't have a great taste in movies, according to Marc Andreyko. So I mean, even more, I still knew the answer.
You didn't see Cabin in the Woods, so you have some taste.
Okay, I'll take it. But look, continue on, Frank. What was Clarke Wolfe's 2-pointer?
Yeah, so the 2-pointer, which was pretty inconsequential because it would not have given her lead, but in the Hunger Games, what's the character's name of Katniss's hairdresser? To me, this was like a 5-pointer. Holy crap. The answer was Flavius. Okay, I thought that was a pretty difficult 3-pointer.
I would have said Lenny Kravitz. I wouldn't have remembered his name.
I would not have remembered his name either. I barely remembered it was Lenny Kravitz, actually. And then, all right. This is one of the most heartbreaking results I've ever seen in the Schmoedown. It was her 5-pointer. What 2016 biographical romance tells the story of future President Barack and Michelle Obama's first date in 1989 Chicago. She says, "South Side with me," and the answer is South Side with you. Were you? What was the reaction in the audience and your reaction? Because Ethan and Clarke looked pretty confused.
I knew it was Southside with you. I mean, that happens. Sometimes that happens. It was like when Clarke and I were playing, and she said Reds 2.
Yeah,
Right.
Reds was a movie that was nominated for I think 12 Oscars, a bunch. That it wasn't pulling out some weird direct-to-video movie that had that title that no one would know. It was a Warren Beatty film that won multiple Oscars. So the difference between Reds 2 and Red 2 are substantial because Reds is a title, is a description, and Red is an acronym. So those words count, you know, and you know, and once again, it's depending on who the person. It's open. There's that open to interpretation thing. I still don't think Chance should have gotten the point for David O. Russell. If he hadn't put that apostrophe in there and just O. Russell, great. But with an apostrophe, that means his last name begins with O.
right.
He shouldn't have gotten it because that's also a thing. You got to if you're not 100% sure, don't give more detail than the question asks for because the more detail you give, the more chance you have to screw up. Especially with the stress of that going on. So yeah, it was a heartbreaker, but that sort of thing has happened to all of us.
Yeah, I think it was so tough personally for me to stomach because it's for the win. It's right there. She knew the answer, and it just got mixed up with the pronouns there. It was definitely tough to watch. Brad, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to say afterward, Mark, I mean, when you heard her say Southside with me, you knew the answer was Southside with you. Obviously, there's probably a, not the best of feelings for the Five Club. How was Clarke, though? Because I know that she's super competitive. We've had her on this show. We've talked about her. She's one of my favorite competitors to watch because of the passion and energy she brings to the game and the fire that she has for the game. Was she just tearing herself up over that?
No, not really. I mean, I think she was kind of suffering through what I was. We were just both exhausted. You're like, you want to win, but it's like, do I want to win? And do I want to go to New York? And do I want to, oh my God, I just want to go to bed because, you know, we're not doing brain surgery or splitting the atom, but trivia is trivial. So when you have all that stuff floating around your brain, eventually you're just like, I don't even know. I don't even know. You know, I don't, you know, they could say, what is the title of the movie E.T.? And I'd be like, I don't know because you're just so fried at that point.
Right. So she just kind of was almost like it was a bittersweet ending, but she was kind of almost glad like, okay, now that chapter's over. I didn't win, but at least I don't have to compete again tomorrow.
And you make it that far. There's no shame in it.
Sure.
There's no shame in it.
Right.
And obviously with something like that, when it's something like a technicality you lose by, she didn't get blown out and not answer any of her questions and lose 18-0. It was a photo finish, and it's just one of those things that happens.
No, yeah, I mean, and you just got to take the good with the bad in that one. And like you said, she didn't get blown out. She competed on a very, very high level. This might be one of her best performances just overall. Even in defeat, she was so good throughout the entirety of this match. But Ethan Erwin, the human Amazon Alexa, comes through with a big victory. He now has an opportunity to win the championship at the Spectacular against John Roca. You talked a little bit at the beginning of this match, Mark, about the styles between Clarke Wolfe and Ethan Erwin. What do you see stylistically the matchup between John Roca and Ethan Erwin? How do you see that playing out?
Well, one is calm and unflappable, and the other is John Roca. so I think that answers your question right
Pretty
there.
much, yeah.
Yeah. That one does. Okay, I don't know if you're a betting man or not, but if you were to be one, who you putting your money on?
Both have a huge amount of knowledge. I think the some of the places that John really excels, like westerns and classics, aren't necessarily Ethan's strongest points. And once again, it just comes down to the fickle fate of the questions that you're being asked.
100%. So we're going to have to see how that match plays out. That's going to be your main event of Schmoedown Spectacular 3. Mark the Android and Draco, before we let you go here, what is the Android's plans for 2019 in the movie trivia Schmoedown?
I would like to get a belt. It's not gonna destroy me if I don't, but I would like to. Having been this close and now knowing how to play the game better, I think that would be fun. But I just want to go and not embarrass myself by losing too badly, and hang out and have fun doing geeky trivia stuff with my buddies.
Well, those aren't bad goals. Those aren't bad goals to accomplish. And I think my final question, Frank, Yeah?
One more thing. I'm looking at my computer. These were the movies nominated for Best Picture when Chicago won. The Pianist, Lord of the Rings, The Two Towers, The Hours, Gangs of New York, and Chicago. And there's only one other movie on that list that I would have been happy with winning. The other three I don't think deserved it.
What's the other movie?
The Hours. I think The Hours is an incredible film. I think The Pianist is completely overrated. I think Gangs of New York is arguably the worst film Martin Scorsese has ever made. And Lord of the Rings, The Two Towers, it was going to definitely win for the third one. So, yeah. So gotcha. Chicago should have won that year.
Well, and I agree with you. I love the movie. And before we let you go, though, if right when you hang up from this Skype call, if you had to watch one of these two movies immediately thereafter, I just want to know which one would it be.
Happen. Don't do it, Brad.
Would it be Wild Wild West or would it be Ready to Rumble?
Oh, boy.
Oh, I would go to bed.
Okay. I'll take it. Well, Mark, thank you so much for joining us. Anything that you want to plug before we get you out of here?
Yeah, I'm writing Supergirl for DC Comics, the monthly Supergirl book. I'm having a great time with that and getting to work with some great classic artists who I never thought I would work with. We're going to be announcing another thing I'm doing for DC in a couple of months that is something I'm really excited about. Got some creator-owned stuff percolating, and going out and pitching movies and TV and all that annoying stuff that everyone in Los Angeles does.
Well, we're going to look out for it. Make sure you pick up Marc Andreyko, Supergirl. That's awesome. Make sure you pick that up wherever you can. And, Mark, thank you for joining us. We're going to see what happens with the Android in 2019. Will he have another moment of the year? We're going to have to find out. That is Mark the Android Andreyko. We'll be right back here on the Schmoedown Rundown. Our special thanks to Mark the Android Andreyko. What a phenomenal guest, even though he doesn't like my taste in movies. Guess what? I don't like his. Now, let's talk, Frank, real quick, let's talk about the Spectacular. We asked him his opinion on the singles championship match. Now, we're going to do a full breakdown special prior to next week's Spectacular, which we're going to be covering in depth, match by match. It's going to be a long one. It's not going to be 5 hours like last year. God, I hope not. But it's going to be in depth. It's going to be awesome. It's going to be worthwhile. But I'm going to run through the card real quick. I just want to get what you're most excited for, and Chris, what you're most excited for. We're going to have the Commissioner Bowl. Christian versus Thad versus Emma versus Tom Dagnino for control of the movie Trivia Schmoedown. You're also going to have the Star Wars Championship match. Mike Kalinowski hooked up his guy Ken Knapsack against Alex Damon. The Inner Geekdom Championship is on the line. The aforementioned Mike Kalinowski versus the champ, Mara Kanopik. Singles League #1 contender match, a dream match. We're going to get to see it again. Clarke Wolfe versus Dan Murrell. And then the team championship, the Shire Wolves versus Who's the Boss. And then finally, the singles championship match, John Roca defends against the human Amazon Alexa, Ethan Erwin. Big time, Ethan Erwin. Frank, what are you looking most forward to?
It's got to be Shire Wolves, Who's the Boss. Given the way Shire Wolves have played in their 4 matches, very dominant, and Who's the Boss has been on a very similar run in their 4 wins to win the tournament. They're both entering 4-0. You have former teammates go up against each other in Riley and Clarke Wolfe. And then you also have Clarke Wolfe also going up against Ben Bateman, now this time in a team setting again, when Ben was in team action and then beat him in the singles tournament. Also, Clarke Wolfe played against Ben Bateman in team action. So there's a lot of history there. And this is definitely my most anticipated match of the event.
Chris Clarke, what are you looking forward to the most, man?
I would have to say that of all of these matches, the one that has the most impact on like the story of the Schmoedown, the Commissioner Bowl, if Tom were to win, would be hilarious for what the Schmoedown would be in 2019. Or if Christian wins, we get the OG commissioner back. So I think the Commissioner Bowl hands down has a lot to gain from whoever wins for story purposes. Everything else is going to be a very fun, entertaining match, like Ethan Erwin versus John Roca. That's going to be a classic. As aforementioned, Shire Wolves versus Who's the Boss. But at the end of the day, I'm most excited to see the outcome of the Commissioner Bowl, because that's going to determine what the storylines are for next season, and I'm just pumped. It's going to rock.
Hey, I'm excited for that one too, but I got to go with Frank, man. I got to agree with Frank to see Shire Wolves versus Who's the Boss. Man, I cannot wait. Former teammates going at it. You have, rivals of Team Action, and one half of Team Action versus, his rival, the people who defeated him at the live event, the Shire Wolves. It's going to be such an awesome match. I'm looking forward to that one the most. But we're going to be back next week. We're going to break it down. We're going to do a midweek special. It's going to be good, man. We're going to follow us on @SD Rundown, because it could be live. It might be taped. We haven't nailed anything down. It's the holiday seasons. It's my birthday. I'm not thinking about plans, but we'll talk about it next week. Just look out for us at SD Rundown on Twitter or Schmoedown Rundown on Instagram or Facebook.com/Schmoedown Rundown. I'm available on all social media at Brad Gilmore. Frank Janisch, where can people find you?
Yeah, you can find me on Twitter and Instagram at FrankieJ29. And follow SD Rundown Stats, too, on Twitter.
SD Rundown Stats as well. Chris Clarke, where can the people find you?
Simply, you can find me on Twitter and Instagram at ChrisClarke8788. Those numbers mean nothing.
Once again, guys, check in with us. We're going to be posting information about our midweek special where we break down, predict, do the whole 9 yards for the Schmoedown Spectacular 3, which goes down next week, December the 21st. It's going to be crazy. It's going to be crazy. Last year was nuts. Will this year's event top it? We're going to get to see, the Andre the Giant versus Hulk Hogan at WrestleMania 3 in the main event. John Roca versus Ethan Erwin, a Commissioner Bowl. Craziness, Lions, Tigers, and Bears. I don't know. Maybe we'll get some questions about Wild Wild West. Maybe Marc Andreyko will give us a whole match about Ready to Rumble. Maybe David Arquette is going to pop up and hit somebody with a chair. You never know what's going to happen at the Spectacular, so make sure you check that out next week. For Frank Janisch, Chris Clarke at 8788, and Brad Gilmore, we'll see ya, brother.